finally here. How's it going, everyone? This is Kevin. Today I want to bring along with me to do a quick test and review of the new Tamron 35-150. So let's jump right into it. Well, if you've watched any of my other videos regarding this lens, you know that I've been waiting a little bit of time to get this bad boy, and it's finally here, finally received after my pre-order, and I'm excited to just kind of put it to the test and review it for you guys, basically in the live mode with me to see how it turns out and just see my thoughts on it fully to see how good of a lens it is. So my main thing is I want to kind of pin it down when it comes down to using my Sigma 35 1.4 to use the 35 part of this as an f2 and see how good of a difference it will be with the 1.4 to the 2. Will it make that much of a difference or not? And also pinning against my 85 prime 1.8 because this will be a 2.8. So I just want to see if it's that much of, you know, like a hassle to like have that extra stop, or does it matter too much with the compression? That way I can kind of see if it's something for you guys as well to go where I can replace my prime lenses to just have one lens to kind of rule them all, or if I want to keep more prime lenses as well, depending on different things that I want to do with them. Another thing that I want to test out is just to see if this lens is going to basically take over my 28 to 75 or in my 70 to 180 to see if I can get rid of them and then be fine without that extra 30mm that would be basically from the 180 of the 70-180, or if I really just, you know, can be fine with just a 35 to 150 and kind of go from there. And finally, just see some examples of photos and videos using the lens, see how good the autofocus and everything is with this lens, just to, you know, have some examples and see what I like about them or what I don't like about them, and see if it's the right fit for you to get this lens as well. So first off, we're just gonna use the Sigma 35 right here at 1.4 and then the Tamron at f2 and just see how it compares with the compression and just go from there to see what comes of it. So let's take some photos. They're not gonna be anything special. It's just gonna be more kind of just my face just to see the compression around me and see how much it basically compares to one another. Now we're gonna move on to using the 35 to 150 Tamron at f2. So now we're gonna compare first the 35 1.4 versus the Tamron basically f2 of the 35mm. So I'm gonna do the reference point. Here we have that one versus that one. Obviously on the left, here's the Sigma with the 1.4, and here is the Tamron at 35 with the f2. When it comes down to basically these two shots, I kind of wanted to zoom in on the eyes just to see how well they held up. They're pretty well sharp in both aspects, really, in my opinion. A little bit sharper with the f2, obviously, because, well, it's at f2 versus a 1.4. But not by much. I mean, in my honest opinion, like you see a little bit more, I guess a little bit defocused here versus this one, but not by a whole lot. The left eye area right here, I guess it would be my right eye if I was in the right setting. It's more like the sharper area because it's focused on it. But from afar, I mean, I honestly wouldn't be able to tell which one's which when it comes down to the bokeh and everything like that. I mean, fairly the same when it comes down to it. So for me, I mean, the 1.4 to the f2 just kind of doesn't make a difference, I guess. But that's just me. Let me know what you think. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Now it's time to use the 85 at 1.8 and the Tamron at 2.8, since that's what the lowest it goes, since you go from f2 to 2.8 as you keep incrementing the focal length. The f-stop keeps obviously going from a 2 to a 2.8. So let's see how the compression looks and then go from there. So now we have the comparison of the 85 1.8 to the Tamron, and the Tamron's going to be a 2.8 versus a 1.8. And that's basically, I just try to do it as close to each other as possible when it came down to the framing, obviously. So here is the 1.8. Let's zoom in and let's zoom in. I mean, they're fairly close to each other when it comes down to the sharpness. Honestly, I mean, you can see a little bit more sharpness in my ear because, well, it's my ear. And because it's a 2.8, but honestly, the bokeh as well, it's not that much different. So, I mean, it's not really helping the primes, I guess, when it comes down to this zoom lens, when it comes down to the comparisons. But that's just me. I try to get them as close to each other as I could in editing. I mean, this one I did a little bit more faded, I guess, by accident, but you get the point. I mean, it's more about the comparison of everything. But that's just basically it. I mean, very good quality. I think we can't really, I wouldn't pick a winner. I wouldn't say like, oh, the 85 1.8 is so much better than the f2.8 Tamron at 85. But that's just me when it comes to this one. And now that we're done using the primes, now we're going to compare the 7180 to the Tamron 35-150, which not really a comparison, but more of the difference to show the 150mm to the 180 to show if you really need that much difference of a focal length to really, I guess, have to get this one as well, or if you want to change it up and get something different. But we're just going to kind of do that because that's something that I would want covered whenever it would come down to these videos itself, just because I wouldn't be able to find it all the time. So I want to just see if that 30mm difference really makes a difference, or if I would be fine just with a 35-150, get rid of this one. And if I really wanted to do anything else, obviously the A7R3 has 42 megapixels. I can put it on the APS-C mode to get that extra, or I can just crop in. So I guess we'll figure it out. So here we have the 180 Tamron from the 7180, and then at 150, because it's as high as it goes, I stood at the same spot right there just to compare the distance in focal length apart. So the 180 is right here, this is the 150, and then I kind of moved up to try to match it as close as possible as I could off of like basically just seeing it on the app. I kind of went with like what the logo of the hoodie was kind of going, and a little of the hair, kind of cropped myself in. But I mean, when it comes down to the compression, it's still fairly fine. I mean, you can tell this one's a little bit up closer more. But other than that, I mean, it's just, I mean, pretty good with the 150 to the 180. I mean, just have to get a little bit closer. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty fine in my opinion. But other than that, I mean, they're pretty fairly good with each other in that aspect. I mean, I guess this one had a little bit problem focusing my right eye compared to this one. But other than that, I mean, they're fairly phenomenal, both lenses. So, I mean, I hate to say it for Tamron, but I honestly don't see a point of having the 7180 if I'm going to have the 35-150 when it comes down to the comparison in this aspect. Now we're going to switch over to the Tamron 35-150 on video just to see how well it holds when it comes down to tracking my face, and, you know, take some photos as well for examples here shortly and go from there. And now we've switched over to the 35-150, filming a little bit at 35 at f2. That's basically what it looks like right now, kind of just testing it out to see, you know, how good it's kind of going. I'm going to slowly but surely start incrementing just to kind of get a little bit going. So we're at the 50 mark. I'll move back so that I can kind of get myself in frame decently enough. There you go. So this is the 50 at f2.2. It starts incrementing slowly but surely. If we go to, I think it's the 70 mark, it'll start going to like a 2.5. which that's basically how it's going right now. There you go. I mean, I'll have to kind of move back a little bit so I'm not getting cut off, but yeah, here you go. Now let's move to 85, and that becomes a 2.8 all the way throughout. So if I start moving back, and let's get to a hundo. Start moving back. let's go to the 150, or actually 135, I guess, and then we'll go to the 150. And lastly to the 150. But there you go, that's basically a live test of the video going from 35 to 150, just so you can kind of see it a little bit more, I guess, live mode to see how it would hold up with the autofocus. I haven't reviewed it yet, but in a bit, once I reviewed, I'll give you my thoughts on that. There really isn't much to, take photos of back here, so I just wanted to use that pumpkin just to kind of show basically from the same distance, just 35 all the way to 150 and how it changes the aperture. So yeah, something simple but kind of cool at the same time because of the textures. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So after reviewing all the footage and all the photos, I kind of have my little final thoughts that I want to share with you guys before I kind of let you go. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. It really does mean a lot, and I do appreciate all the support with the likes and subscribes and sharing. So if you do that, I truly thank you so much. So now when it comes down to this Tamron 35 to 150, I mean, I might sound super duper biased, but I did buy it myself, so it's not really as biased as you would think. I just believe that this lens is so good for what it is. Like from the f2 to 2.8 all the way throughout, I thought it was a very sharp lens when it came down to taking the portraits that I take outside, as though when it came down to the video with the fast reaction relatively with everything. I mean, I was just going up and doing it live, so you saw what I was doing. But I honestly think that this is just gonna replace my Sigma 1.4 and also my Sony 85 1.8, that I'm just gonna sell them because I honestly don't see a purpose to having those lenses when it comes down to just having one lens to kind of rule them all. If you like Lord of the Rings, primo, but I mean, I'm not gonna be let this consume me too much, but at the end of the day, I do believe that this lens is just phenomenal. I mean, it is a little bit heavy and girthy and whatnot. The thread size is an 82, but like I said, I usually buy my step-up rings and everything like that to get the lenses that I like, the filters that I want at 82 anyway, so it kind of works out perfectly. So I am very excited when it comes down to this lens itself now, because finally after receiving it and making the videos before, I kind of was right, I guess. Like the reasons why I was excited for it, I mean, it just, overall this lens is just going to be phenomenal. 2 to 2.8 is a phenomenal aperture basically size, and also the length of the focal length of this lens itself is just phenomenal in my eyes. So I think can't really say anything bad about it right now, besides I guess the weight of it, because it is a little bit heavy. But besides of that, I really liked what I just tested kind of quickly, and hopefully this will help you out to decide if you really want to get into this lens and kind of get rid of some of your primes or get rid of some of your other basically zoom lenses. Like my 28 to 75 is kind of becoming obsolete to me now, which I'm just going to really let my wife use it because she's doing photography as well, so there's no point for me to just get rid of that one. But my 7180, I mean, I kind of want to keep it for my wife to use, but at the same time, I'm like, if anything, she can just borrow this one whenever I'm not using it, because I mean, the extra 30mm length isn't really worth it in my opinion. So worst case scenario, like I said, I could use maybe like the crop mode into the A7R3 with the extra megapixels and be fine with that to get more of that range if I really need to, and I can't, let's say, move up to the subject or anything like that. But other than that, I'm pretty sold on this lens, and I really think it's a phenomenal lens, and I hope that this helped you out with your decision, as well as it kind of clarified my decision into buying it, make me feel better about it, because it's great to see the reviews, but it's also great to test it out for yourself, and not everybody can do it. and I kind of jumped the gun and just decided to do it because on paper it looked phenomenal, and now on testing so far it's looked phenomenal as well. I can't wait to take more kind of videos and photos with this lens and these upcoming trips that I have, and then I'm gonna be showing you guys some good old photos and everything. So if you follow me on social media like at Instagram and Twitter, here are the socials if you want to see them again. Usually have them at the beginning of every video. But if you made it this far, it means you've kind of invested into this video and you're invested into what I'm bringing out to you, and I appreciate that a lot. So hopefully you will follow the social media so you can see more of this in action and everything else that I kind of cover when it comes down to these videos and photos and everything like that. But with all that said and done, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, share this video with a friend. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.